Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
Here he is, Kyle Brandt, guy. I can't even call you an up-and-comer, Kyle. I mean, you're still a young, strapping, handsome dude, but you've been on the scene since way back in, 2001, am I correct? Was that Real World Chicago?
Yeah, 2001, yes.
So is that a touchy subject, Real World?
No, dude, not at all. Because here's my thought on doing the Real World, which I did in the Chicago season. It's a life tattoo. It will never go away. I've said, I could become president. I could invent the cure for cancer. And when I was at the press conference announcing the vaccine, someone in the back would be like, so what's with the cameras? Do they follow you everywhere? People will always ask me about that. So it's not touchy. Because I hate that, AJ. I hate it when people do something, and they're like, I don't like to talk about that's in the past now, man. I move on to bigger things. I'd always talk Real World.
So why did you do it, though?
So senior year in college, the last 2 weeks of school, we didn't give a crap about school. We didn't care. We found gut classes. Real World comes to campus in the spring of 2001. And this is when the Real World was the real world. I'm talking Ruthie in Hawaii and New Orleans and all those classic seasons. The term reality show did not even exist. It wasn't the total circus that it is now. It was the show in college. So they come to campus out of nowhere. My friends and I decide to pretty much get hammered and go to it just for laughs. And then they liked me and they picked me, and it was in the hometown of Chicago. So it was a drunken second semester senior year stunt that ended me up in that house with those maniacs.
And now you're tied to them forever.
Forever. They're part of my life tattoo. You know how you got that wedding ring tattoo that I just saw on the screen?
Yeah.
Mine is it's like a lower back tattoo that says MTV.
So you lived in Chicago. I mean, I won't harp too much on the Real World, but that the time you are speaking of was when I was a huge fan of the show, because you're right. That's when the show was rolling, when it was fun to watch. Yeah. Did you have a moment, a Real World moment that got you into the show? Something happened, you're like, oh my God, this show. For me, it was the Seattle season. It was this guy, Steven. And when he slapped her? Yeah, Irene was the girl. She had Lyme disease, and she was leaving the show. And then she leaves, and she's like, by the way, Steven, you're a homosexual. And he's like, what? And then he slaps her in the face, a woman. And that was when I'm like, this is television. This is what I'm into now. And then again, 2 years later, I was on the show. Did you have a moment? Honestly, that might be my moment, but it was a lot of people's moment. I mean, Puck was obviously he put the Real World on the map, I believe. Was that Real World 1? I think it was. I don't know. The Real World, the first one was in New York. I think Puck was San Francisco. Puck was the guy who he was with Pedro. Yeah. Who I really hope I'm messing this up. I believe that Pedro was HIV positive, and he was obviously had a sensitive health condition. And Puck was sticking his finger in Pedro's peanut butter, which is just a savage move. It's not funny, but it's funny how outlandish it is. And so Puck was the godfather and the forefather of the Real World. So I mean, we all hailed down to him as a reality character. Well, I would have to give the casting agent huge credit, because the show was so young, and you have to cast right if you want it to take off. And they found this dude Puck, and it's almost like he's not even he's a cartoon character. How crazy he is! Even his name, it's not that guy's name could be I'm Jim. His name was. And I remember I met Puck one time, AJ. See, it's so funny because you played with future Hall of Famers and current Hall of Famers. You played with Brett Favre. He goes in this weekend, and you would play, and I'm like, yeah, but I met Puck once, man. That's my Hall of Famer. That's my first ballot Hall of Famer. I met him at a party once, and it was just everything you would expect. He was talking to me about how he eats plants, and I don't mean lettuce, flowers and things out of the garden, and he picks up a carnation or something and eats it right in front of me. And that's how I knew I was on Planet Puck. So that was my Puck experience. Was only one, and I was I feel like I was in the presence of greatness. I didn't know how to approach him. And then he starts eating plants out of the garden. He's nuts. Well, yeah, he seems to be like Ric Flair. There's no character cut. He doesn't drop the character when he gets out of the ring. No, I agree. It wasn't like I walked up to Crazy Puck at the party. He was like, "What's up, dude? You want a beer? You see that Bears game?" At all. He was still Puck, and there's no cameras there. How about CT though? I think he might be the MVP of all time. It's a good question. So, and as you can tell, dude, there's no taboo about Real World. I'll talk it all day. My CT experience was
I don't watch the CT era. Like I'm not into it, but he is so big that you know who CT is even if you don't watch. And people ask me the question all the time. So, dude, you're on Real World. Would you ever do one of those challenges? Would you do the challenge? I never have. And sometimes I start to think, man, like maybe it'd be cool to just, go down to Cabo and like compete athletically and, do whatever those events are they do and live there for a week or two. And every time I start to think that it might be a good idea, I see one of those promos for like this season on the challenge. And it's like just dudes in bandanas punching each other and like night vision cameras of threesomes and so much drinking and everyone's like just shredded or roided or something. And like I feel like someone's like always getting their ass kicked by CT. So I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. There's no way I would want it. I met him one time and I knew who he was. And I just walked up to him and I felt like nervous or something, like you would like a dog, like a dog that might bite. Because he's so famous for being such a loose cannon, but they had a 20th, maybe it was 25 seasons of Real World party in Hollywood, like maybe 8 or 9 years ago that I got invited to. Invited all the former cast members, and they put us all in a house, and it was like the giant Real World house. Instead of 7, man, there was like 200 of us, and I met CT then, and he was totally like chill, Boston bro, what up? Like he was cool. He was my kind of guy. And he didn't punch anybody. So I did get to meet him once, no violence, and I respect him. He's maybe one of the greatest reality show characters of all time.
Oh, for sure. He was recently, did you hear him on Portnoy's podcast?
No, I did not. No, I know Portnoy's podcast, but I did not hear CT.
He was really good, man. And Portnoy would like play clips, like the audio clips of CT's fights when he was just blasting dudes and chasing them down throughout, like out in the courtyard of their house in Cabo or whatever.
Right, I remember like when the Jersey Shore came on and like those guys were like knocking people out. Like, God, this is crazy. And I'm like, dude, CT was doing this before Ronnie and the Situation were doing it.
Yeah, they should pay royalties to CT, I think.
They should. They should have like a reality show Hall of Fame, like really, because CT is like, I mean, he's like Jim Brown. I mean, he's like a legend. It's like Boston Rob from Survivor and like Omarosa from The Apprentice, and CT is like is a first ballot guy.
He really is. Did you feel like when you were shooting the Real World, did you ever truly forget the cameras were there, or did you get to a point where you didn't care that they were there?
Never. And that was my biggest problem. You never forget. That's BS that people say, hey, you just get used to it, and you never forget. And because, by the way, this was like 2001 again, so camera technology has come a long way. It wasn't some handheld thing. It was like this 50-pound shoulder-mounted thing coming up behind you as you're speaking to this girl you're having a thing with. So you don't ignore that. You don't forget it. My problem was, because I'm the first guy to say it, I came off like a huge tool on the show. And I came off as a tool because I tried so hard not to be a tool. Everything was just very tight and I was very conscious of what I was saying. So if I just would have relaxed, I probably would have been fine. But I couldn't, because you can't forget those cameras are there. That answer to that question, anybody who says they forget the cameras there is lying. No way.
I agree 100%, especially with the big, when it's a dude. If it was like the drop cams mounted like in the bedrooms like I feel like they have now, maybe at some point you would, like for the first minute you'd wake up. It's like that moment when, I don't know if you remember Matthew McConaughey when he wakes up the first day in Ed TV. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, of course.
He wakes up and he's scratching his balls and everything. He like scratches his balls and he's like, and then he looks and he sees the cameraman, or he sees like the camera in the corner. He's like, oh, all right. And then he strolls into the bathroom.
Yeah, what you do forget about is not that the cameras are there, but sometimes that you're mic'd up. Because sometimes like the roaming camera crews will walk away. They'll cover one of the other cast members. But you still have a mic on that's going to production booth. So I had a real problem with that because I would start talking. I remember like one of my friends, he was there like a visitor, and he was just like, so dude, like, do they follow you like when you go to the bathroom and take a dump? And I started talking about, oh no, man, last night I did the biggest thing. I laid out the whole bathroom experience that I had, and I mean, it was disgusting and revolting. I would never do that. But you do forget about the microphones. That's true. It's kind of like, forgetting about the cameras reminds me of our last conversation when we talked about how you forgot about the cameras when you did the middle finger on the middle of the field and got fined $10,000 by the NFL. By the way, AJ, when you came on my podcast, I asked you why you did that, and you went into a really funny explanation of how you have a coffee mug and you got fined, and you kind of just said it was an inside joke, but we never got to hear what the joke was. What is this joke where you do a middle finger in the middle of the field? What is that?
Well, it's not really a joke. Like, there's no punchline or anything like that. It was just kind of a running thing that I had done multiple times before, and I told you that.
Running thing. You did a middle finger?
Yeah, on your great podcast, 20 Questions, which is on hiatus now because you're the biggest thing since Anderson Cooper pretty much now in New York. You're taking over the city. I'd done a few other times. I'd flick some people off, and yeah, of course. And I think I told you on your deal, and I was dumb enough. The first couple of times I got away with them, like, oh, cool, I'm good, man, nothing happened. And so I just figured I was good to go. But then I did it after I got a sack to our sidelines. And
who was the teammate you were flipping off?
It's multiple. It was multiple guys and multiple teammates that were kind of in on it, and it wasn't even like a thing, like they didn't dare me to, or it was just that's what I'm stupid. And so sometimes when you get excited, it's like when a guy gets excited and you start punching each other, like, oh, what's up, buddy, and you hit him, and like that's how you show affection. That's kind of what that was for me.
See, because AJ, we talked about this before. I unfairly judged you before we met. That I thought you were like a total like Slayer metalhead. You know, you got the cool name. You played linebacker. You got the long hair. And then I found out like you're like a total Renaissance man of a bunch of different things. But I will say, having the inside joke where you just give each other the middle finger, that's some great meathead stuff right there, man. That's the AJ I thought you were. Yeah,
that's like some middle school, high school meathead.
But it's funny.
Yeah, I own it. Believe me, I'm fully aware of when I have those dumb meathead moments. You have to. Just like you said, you owned your real world experience.
Yeah.
Why not? And it's scary to think that you put all that out there and it's out there forever. But what's weird about the real world, like I listened to Theo Vaughn. He's a comedian, and he was on the Real World.
I know who that guy is.
Yeah, Theo's he's a big comedian. Just had a special come out on Netflix, and he has a good podcast and all this stuff. But it's hard to even find. Does MTV like lock those clips up? Like I was trying to look some stuff up on you from Real World, and I can't even barely find anything.
I'm so glad. And two things I'll say to that. One, for some reason, that season of mine has had a very low internet profile. Like there's just isn't that much stuff out there, which is great. But I don't know if you heard that in the news this week that they're relaunching VH1 Classic as MTV Classic, and they're going to apparently be doing real-world marathons like we used to watch back in the day. So I think things might be back in play. Just now as I'm getting a job with the NFL, my MTV life is going to be coming back, so I'll probably get fired. But one Saturday you're going to be looking up on MTV Classic, and there will be me in my underwear fighting about the showers or something. It's coming back.
I love it. So you mentioned – you guys just launched a brand new show, Good Morning Football on NFL Network. Are you on air from 7 to 10 a.m.?
7 to 10 a.m. live Eastern time, where I'm now talking to you from. So, I mean, it's an ungodly time in the morning, especially on the West Coast. But it's like we get up and we caffeinate, and we have our first production meeting, at 5 a.m. Eastern. So I come from like the radio world, so that's nothing. But like I think for some of the people who are new to it, it's a kick in the teeth, man.
And so you picked up and moved from LA to New York?
AJ, in the span of a few weeks, we had a baby, I got a new job, we packed up our house, and we moved 3,000 miles from Southern California, and then I started on a live TV show. Like, I have to prep the show tomorrow. I got movers still at my house unpacking dishes. We have a 2.5-year-old. We have a baby who's 4 weeks. It's bedlam at my house. I get a lot of this. I don't know if you get this. You have kind of different lifestyle. I get a lot of texts from my wife, who's amazing. My most popular text I get from her is, when are you coming home? How long until you're home? Give me a ballpark time frame. And I always want to be so careful with that because she'll be like, when do you think you'll be home? And I'm thinking in my head, probably about 1. But maybe I just tell her 1:30, just like a little cushion, because I don't want to say 1 and then make it 1:20. So that's the life right now for the Brandt family.
What do you mean? That's everybody's lifestyle, I feel like. That's mine. I do that to my wife. My wife is currently working right now, and I'm like, all right, well, do you know when you'll be home, like in ballpark, because I need to know for the kids and naps and everything. Yeah. And she'll be like, well, no, there's no way I'll be home later than 1, and she's always home like 2:30.
That's the problem. If you put out that definitely be home by 1, then that's sudden death overtime. Like, you cannot be back at 1:01, or you can show the timestamp on the text. That's why you got to be careful with phrasing those things, man. I use the term around and should be sometime here around, but it's like, I'm glad to hear that you go through that too, because I'm glad it's not just me. The when are you going to be home text, man, I probably have 50 of those from the last month.
Well, especially with how crazy your life is. So you have all this going on. You moved from, how many years do you live in L.A.?
I lived in L.A. For 14 years, and my wife is born and raised in LA. All her friends are there, all her family is there, and now we live in the suburbs above New York. where we know almost nobody, and where I leave in the middle of the night, and we have the new baby. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, when I get those "when are you coming home" texts, I deserve them, because I like completely ripped us uproot from where we came from. And I mean, it was, you could probably identify as a player. I mean, it feels a little bit like I was like traded, like out of nowhere, like my team cut me or traded me, or I got picked up, and it's like, guess what, we're moving right now. I mean, what was it like when you went from Green Bay to Cincinnati? Was that sudden? I don't remember how that went down. How did that happen?
Well, it wasn't exactly sudden, because I was released by Green Bay in like March, and early March, and I signed with Cincinnati maybe early to mid-April, I think it was. But I live in Ohio, so it was actually good. We were always in Columbus in the off season, and so we were back in Columbus, and then luckily the Bengals called. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll drive 2 hours down the road. So that part was easy, but for sure going back and forth, even though Green Bay it's about a 9-hour drive, and we would drive to Green Bay a lot, especially once we had the kids and dogs and everything before and after the season. Yeah, it's tough, man, to move. Even, I'm not joking, even to get my stuff out of our Cincinnati condo that we rented to bring it back here was not fun. Like, it was a big deal. So I can't imagine going from LA to New York City. Oh, and by the way, you're starting a live TV gig starting at 7 a.m. on air.
So you mentioned the Hawk kids. You and I did my podcast, I'm going to say maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago. I have told so many people since we did that the names of your children, because they're the coolest named kids I've ever heard of. We're talking about Lennon, Hendrix, and then your new baby Vedder. See, dude, I'm like a white bro from the Midwest. All my friends like Pearl Jam. Like, you understand, because you are too. Yeah. We're all about Pearl Jam. So I'm like, he actually named, because you know what? People always say that the thing that they keep bringing up about you, like annoying people, they're like, oh, did you know he's Brady Quinn's brother-in-law? Yes, we all know that. I'm trying to start the new one. Do you know he has a kid named Vedder? Because I'm spreading that to everybody. I think that is the coolest kid, and I haven't even met him.
Yeah, he's a good little dude. I appreciate it, man. We're gonna have more, so we're trying to come up with some other names. So if you know of any, let me know.
Do you want to pull, like, because you have such a different thing. You've got like the classic rock, you've got the Beatles, and then you've got like the new era. Do you want to pull from that? Do you want to name him, Lane Hawk or Amen Hawk or Cornell Hawk? I mean, there's a lot of potential.
Or like Katy Perry Hawk or Justin Bieber Hawk.
Maybe. I know you like that stuff too. Miley Hawk.
Oh, Miley's not a bad.
I was listening to Yellow Ledbetter before we got this thing going, because I was trying to get in the mood. Do you know what that song is about? I like to ask Pearl Jam, because I mean, I really don't. I'm not even sure Eddie Vedder knows what it's about at this point. But it's like their proverbial anthem.
Yeah, it really is. I have no idea what it's about. I've actually never even. I guess I just feel like I'm not even on the same level as those guys, as Eddie in the band. So I'm like, why would I even try to understand this guy's art? He's a genius.
Yeah, I think it's like, I tried to Google it, but there's so much BS on the internet about it. I actually think it's about some like really heavy stuff having to do with war and like coming home killed in action. Like, I think Eddie was like in one of those really dark places 30 years ago when he wrote that. Because it's usually this, it's the song that always closed their shows, and I get really heavy about it. Like when the band breaks up or stops touring, or heaven forbid when Eddie finally dies, that will be the song that they play. It'll be Yellow Ledbetter. That's the proverbial Pearl Jam song. So it gets really melancholy for me, and I was thinking about that as pertains to young Vedder Hawk.
Yeah, young Vedder's about 7 months now, so they're all the kids. I make sure to school them up a little bit, and they need to know about their namesake. So.
Of course, man.
We'll see. I don't know. Eddie's a big Cubs fan, I think.
Huge, yeah. He's sang the "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" a few times. I think he usually gets totally hammered when he does it. Because I mean, he sounds halfway. Like, have you ever heard the Ozzy Osbourne version of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game"?
Yeah,
it's fantastic. And Ozzy Osbourne butchered it so badly. And he's a professional singer. I mean, it's not like he took like a comedian. People forget. I mean, Ozzy was the reason he got famous. He was a rock star lead singer. But his is a mess. Eddie's is a mess. Ditka's is a mess. I guess you're never going to get to do that ever, because you're like most identified as a Packer in
I don't, man. I'm happy. I think that I didn't play in Chicago just because that scares me to death. Thinking of singing it. Yeah, are you kidding me? I would be so nervous.
Would you rather do that, AJ, or throw out the first pitch?
Throw out the first pitch. I've done that at multiple places.
You have?
I love it.
Did you do that with the Brewers?
Yeah, the Brewers. I've done it here. The Columbus Clippers here, the AAA team. Taking batting practice with the Brewers back in the day. I go up to the rubber. I don't stand in front of the mound like an idiot.
Yeah. How'd the pitches go?
Well, this is why I'm still hurt about it. My rookie year, this was like 10 years ago in Milwaukee. I didn't get any practice. I didn't get to warm up my arm, but no, like you know how you're dropping down, pitching off a mound. So I was a pitcher growing up.
Oh,
so yeah, I'm dropping down. I hadn't thrown off a mound though in probably 7 years, and I step off the mound and I pitched. It was a little low in Milwaukee, and then I went to Columbus and just threw it out and got to throw the first pitch, and I fired a strike because this is my eyes. How I view it, Mike, it doesn't matter if you throw it literally off the backstop behind the catcher. Just throw that thing hard wherever it may go.
Yeah, you can't. If you one hop it, you look terrible. But you're right. Just throw it off the backstop. I remember, like, sometimes those things get really huge. Like, people say, "Oh, what's the greatest first pitch ever?" And it's not even close. It's George W. Bush who went, I believe it was Yankee Stadium post 9/11 because. Like, he has no choice. The whole country is waiting for him. We're trying to show that the terrorists can't stop us, and we will not fall. We will not go quietly in the night. And George Bush, mind you, wearing a bulletproof vest under his jacket, doesn't even just throw a strike. It's like he paints the corner with, like, Greg Maddox movement. It was the coolest thing he's ever done. You might hate him as a president. It doesn't matter. It's the greatest first pitch I've ever seen.
I'm so happy you said that. I talk about that so much.
I do.
Just think of like I know the nerves I had throwing first pitch out, and I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine this dude? Yeah, and like you said, bulletproof vest under that Yankees jacket. And supposedly the story is that Jeter told him, like, hey, you're going up to the rubber, right? Don't you think about standing in front of the mound.
I was clutched by Jeter too then.
Oh my God. But even like it just looked so athletic, and George Dubs looked like, hey, nothing, no sweat off my back, man.
And that, you're right. His reaction to it was like, you guys are impressed with that? You're in the United States of goddamn America. I'm the commander-in-chief. What do you think I'm going to do? It's like if he dribbled that thing or just if he went 50 Cent with it, that's like a humiliation. Like, they're laughing at us again. It was so I mean, I honestly think that like that pitch was more clutch than any thrown by Mariano Rivera or Tom Seaver or anybody because of the stakes. I mean, it's like I'm getting all like goosebumps thinking about it right now.
You're right though, because that's his one shot. Those other guys all had many things, but I would love to hear people. Yeah, right. Terrible pitch, terrible president. Like, can you imagine the people like anyone that's on the left that wants to argue? Like, hey, bro, we're talking about his pitch. We could care less about his politics and policies.
Yeah, dude. That pitch was unimpeachable by either side of the aisle. I'm gonna pull it up on YouTube as soon as we're done because it fires me up.
You have to listen to Yellow Ledbetter and watch George Dubs throw out the first pitch.
Exactly right.
That would get me all pumped up, man. Oh God! Wait, so if you made this quick turn from LA to New York, how long were you in talks of joining the NFL Network show?
It went on for a long time. It's amazingly complicated when you do TV deals. It's like there's so many. It's not just like, do you want this job for this amount of money? And you say yes. There's intricacies about dressing rooms and very complicated things down the road with contracts and money, and do you want an assistant? And it just goes on forever. And at some point, I was like, look, if we're going to do this, can I just get on the field and play? Like, I don't care about, how big my dressing room is or what the wardrobe consideration is. Now, you hire representatives to do all that stuff because it's huge, but I just wanted to get in there, man. I've been wanting to do a job like this for a decade easily, and not to mention, man, like, we had to get packed up and move if this thing was going to happen. It's not like it was down the street. So to answer your question, I feel like it was like, I don't know, weeks, but I feel like it's lasted years, and I'm finally here. It's only day 2, man. So
did you have to go in and have like a series of auditions for it?
That's the coolest part. I didn't audition once. I was so flattered because you always hear that in Hollywood, like, it's someone that gets to a certain point where they don't have to audition anymore. They only get offers, like we don't have to go in and audition for J.J. Abrams. They just offered me the part. It's like you guys don't really have that in the NFL. Like, you still have to like go through a physical, and you usually have to work out. But it's as if someone got cut from the Steelers and the Bengals just said immediately, we're signing you, no workout. It was very cool. I have not earned that, but I think they were just maybe in such a hurry that they're like, well, crap, I hope Brandt can play because we're out of time, so we got to sign him. So I didn't audition once, which was awesome. That's
great, man. Who are you repped by? Who's your agent?
William Morris Endeavor.
Have you been with them since you're? Have you been with them since you were the sultry Days of Our Lives actor?
No way, man. That was like I had this like boutique agency in the Valley who just like churned out soap stars. It was so funny because this is what happens when you go to LA. Like you go to LA to be an actor and you're like, look, I'm going to be Matt Damon and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way that's not happening. And then you show up and you're like, oh, so I'm not immediately auditioning for Spielberg. And you're like, well, look, I guess, maybe I'd be willing to consider a primetime TV show if it's something really well tenured and pedigreed. And then you get down and you're like, well, yeah, maybe I'll audition for a sitcom pilot. And then after that, you're, well, a soap opera, huh? Because like once you get below soap opera, you're talking about porn, really. So like, and then below porn, it's crime. Like you rob banks.
What, softcore porn? Is softcore porn in there?
Softcore porn, I would think, would be above hardcore. But like, dude, there are people who do that. Like that, we all have joked about softcore porn our whole lives. There's people who make their living doing those like boobs and kissing movies, as we used to call them as kids, all over LA. Thank God I never got that far. But to make the point is, everybody shows up thinking they're going to be Matt Damon, and then you end up trying not to be Dirk Diggler. Thank God.
There's the tagline of this episode right there.
Right.
Wow. So, but you did. When you went on The Real World, did you foresee yourself becoming an actor?
Yeah, like so I was the guy in college who like was doing the plays. I was on the football team, but I also did plays. So like, things have gotten a lot more progressive since I was in college. Back at the time, it wasn't that progressive. People did not think it was cool that I was in theater. There were a lot of jokes at my expense. Like when we would do the talent show before the season started, like where we do skits and stuff like that, I just got hammered by these guys who were the linebackers and the O-linemen because they didn't get why you would ever do a play or something like that. So I always wanted to be the guy who was the actor and I read about this thing about Ed Harris, who was an actor I love. Everybody loves him in The Rock and a million other movies. He was a football player turned actor, like a big time football player. So like I had this article about him taped above like my bunk bed in my dorm. I always wanted to do it. And then the MTV thing, like we talked about, just came to campus and it happened. And at that time, I'm like, all right, yeah, shoot, I'll take it. And I moved to LA right away. And I always wanted to do it. And it somehow worked out, man.
How many years were you on Days of Our Lives?
3.5 years going to Days of Our Lives. AJ, everybody at one point, whether it's through their babysitter, girlfriend, or just their own accord, watches a soap opera. What was your soap at what point in your life? What'd you do?
See, I can't think of like an exact. Days of Our Lives is probably the one that I've seen more than others. It's been years, but it was always like when I was sick home from school and either my mom or grandma was watching me and they had it on, and there's just such a weird atmosphere. Like when you watch Days of Our Lives or any of them, it just feels weird. Like I don't know what it is, if they do like they put some like soft filter lens on the cameras or what they do, but I don't understand soaps. But what's crazy is I have huge respect for them, because doesn't that turn you into like or it's huge training for an actor, because you guys are going through pages and pages every single day, and the next day is a brand new script?
Yeah, and by the way, you're right. They are weird. They're so unique. Like they don't look like anything else. And it's not only the strange camera that somehow is still persisting even in the era of HD. It's how they end all those scenes with the silent look. Isn't that what kind of genre is that? That every scene ends with someone says a line and then someone does like.
Are they serious? Are they serious though? Like, are the producers and writers, are they serious, or are they just are they trolling us?
No, like here's the thing. People would say, like, when you do those looks at the end of the scene, like, you guys have to be laughing your ass off, right? And I'm like, hell yes. We all know how ridiculous it is. After every freeze frame to end a scene and that dramatic look, the second the director says we're clear, everybody starts laughing. No one takes it serious. The writing, too, man. I mean, look, you want to hear serious? My character was a Marine, okay, who lost his leg in battle and then came back to the States and became a NASCAR driver with one leg. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And then they make you go in and do speeches where it's dead serious. And I would have all these diatribes where I'm like, I need to prove it to my wife that I can still drive this car with the best of them. And it's just ridiculous dialogue. But shit, when you're 24 and they pay you pretty good money to be on TV every day and just mess around, dude, it was a great job. Great job.
There's one, I don't know if it's Days of Our Lives or not, but one of the Real Housewives of, is it Orange County or Beverly Hills? Well, she's been on it for like 20 some years.
You talking about, is it Lisa Rinna?
No, there's a blonde lady who's married to the poker player.
Eileen Davidson, is it her?
Man.
I might be her. So, but yeah, I mean, those people, all right, so back in the day when you and I were little kids, like in the 80s, that's when soaps ran TV because whatever, you got 5 or 6 channels, and like the soap stars were rock stars. They were making millions of dollars. They'd go on Johnny Carson. And then everything blew up, and now there's a million channels. But I tell you one thing I learned about. This is interesting because I've interacted with a bunch of different kinds of fans. I've interacted with like MTV fanboys, sports radio tools, and that now we're doing the NFL thing, and there's a ton of fans there, obviously. I have never come across fans as rabid or loyal as soap fans, and I got an explanation for that once because people were saying, okay, you have a movie star, like whoever, Ben Affleck or something. Maybe he does a couple movies a year. You have a major TV star, Sofia Vergara. She does, I don't know, what is it, a couple dozen times a year she has a new show. Soaps are in your home every day for an hour all year round. It's like you become part of the family. Like people spent more time with me than they would their husbands sometimes. So when they see you, man, they just bring it in. They treat you like they're your husband. There's so much contact. There's so much kissing and like rubbing. It's incredible, man, because some of those fans, God love them, but from the deep south, it's really hot, and they've been waiting in line to meet you at the mall for 2 hours, and they're a little ripe, and they get in there, and they're going to get their money's worth, man. I always found that for fans who love soaps, they don't often love soap, and I always found that was ironic. But you came across that, man. Let's be honest. You have NFL fans. You had the long hair. You had that sexy linebacker thing going. I'm sure they got their money's worth on you.
I mean, it depends. It's a different. Yeah, I feel like soap fans are almost as passionate and rabid as like wrestling fans.
Yes, it's true.
Like wrestling fans, they're all in. They're buying the products. They're buying the John Cena figurines and the T-shirts and whatever. And if they hate John Cena, they're buying his rival or whoever the heel is at the time.
No, because wrestling is a soap opera. It's a scripted entertainment with big characters and dramatic storylines, and like. Susan Lucci would be like The Undertaker or something. I get it. It's a good comparison.
So are you still actively seeking acting gigs?
No, I stopped doing that. You mentioned that you looked up the real world stuff on the internet, and there's not a lot of it. There's plenty of evidence on the internet that avoiding acting was a good choice for me. It's so hard. I mean, it really is. I get that question sometimes. A mutual friend of ours, Jeff Perlman, who's an author who used to write for SI, and he's written books. He has a Brett Favre book that's coming out. He asked me his thing. He's like, so really, is acting hard, or is it just make it a lot easier? It is so hard. I mean, I always think of it's kind of like rapping. Like anybody can do it, but only like a select amount of people on the planet can do it well. Like imagine if you, AJ or I, like look at Daniel Day-Lewis. He's probably the best actor on the planet. Like if you or I tried to do Abraham Lincoln, we would look like such a-holes, like with that beard and that top hat and that stupid high voice. But he doesn't. It's like totally seamless. Yes, it's really hard.
It's crazy hard that people don't give people the respect I feel like they deserve. They think they could do it. You're right. Like, yeah, we could do it. That doesn't mean you can do it well. Like I can, like anything, man. Man, Daniel Day-Lewis, I always talk about that dude. I would wonder. When is he taking it too far with the method acting? Is my question.
That method acting thing is so weird. Like, I always get a little annoyed by that. Like, I hear that like he was walking around set and he was like to be referred to as like Mr. Lincoln, and then like I would read that like Christian Bale on the set of the Batman movies, like on his dressing room door, it would say like Bruce Wayne and not Christian Bale. It's a little pretentious, and yet I'm talking about Christian Bale and Daniel Day-Lewis, and I love their movies so much that I wouldn't want to change anything about what they do, man. Well, it works, Yeah.
Did you ever come across that when you were on Days of Our Lives? Any method actors?
No, I mean, on the soaps, no. Other than, I guess, in the sense that they were having also a lot of sex off camera, as much as they were on camera. They were method sexing, I guess. But no, if I was going to be, because sometimes you get out there and you're so ambitious and you're 23 and you want to be this famous actor that you really dedicate yourself. You know how you know the serious actors, AJ, when they refer to their craft? That's the C word. Yeah. I used to refer to my craft. But if I ever went around being like, no, when I'm on set, I'm not Kyle. I'm Philip Kiriakis. Like, someone should have just punched me in the face. You know, I did not do that stuff.
Do you still get people that call you Philip?
All the time.
Really?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, I have my resume is so weird, and it's my up and down that, like, my wife and I kind of entertain ourselves sometimes. If we're at a restaurant, every once in a while, and someone will come up and just say, "Excuse me for 1 second." We always like try to make a bet. I'm like, "Hold on a sec, stop before you say anything." We try to make a bet. Okay, is this person a real world thing, a soap opera thing, like a Jim Rome thing? And it's most of the time it's soap opera, man. Those people are such an army. They love their Philip. They love all of us.
They know you. They saw you in their living room. You're right. 5 days a week. It's like podcasts. When you listen to that's why podcasting is awesome, because I can listen to all these different people's podcasts, and you really do get to know them, the guys that are good, because you can't just put on a front. And if you're going to speak your mind and whatever, people do. They kind of know your views and your thoughts and whatever. I mean, they know you as Philip. They don't know Kyle. But
no, AJ, I got to tell you, totally sincerely, I'm really flattered to be on here, man, because you have like a really good list of people who have come on. You know, I was just listening to the Jared Allen one. Jared Allen's one of my favorite NFL players ever. And this is cool that I'm here. I have to tell you something else, too. What year did you get drafted?
2006.
06. Okay, in 06, I was living by myself. I was single. I was still on the soap, and I was just lonely as hell, no girlfriend, whatever. I was living in this house that I bought by myself, and I wanted to get a dog. All right, so I grew up in Chicago, but I have a huge affection for Wisconsin because I spent summers there. And even though I was a Bears fan, I liked the Packers too. We needed a name for the dog, and the Packers drafted A.J. Hawk. My old dog was named A.J., largely after you and Adam Jones, who was the guitarist from Tool. But you played a massive role in it. My dog was named AJ, like some sort of like Packer fan who's an owner because they have that certificate. I was naming my dog after you, man.
Wow.
So let's just show him on your podcast.
Trust me, I'm very honored to have you on here. Like I said, you're taking over, man. You're taking over the world.
It's been a crazy couple of months.
It has. And when I first met you, at least in person, tell me if we met before this, but I'm pretty sure. Was that in New York City? I was doing like the Boomer and Carton radio deal, and you were with your old boss, I guess he would be, Jim Rome.
Yeah.
And I saw you, and I have to tell you, like, it's crazy. When I met you, I was with Butnick, my good friend Jonathan Butnick, who's a great guy and helped me out with everything. Got me hooked up with you a long time ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's Jim. What's up? How you doing, Jim Rome? Good to see you. And I talked to you, and I saw you. I was like, trying not to stare at you, but I was looking at you. I'm like, this is the real world, dude. I was like, you got to be kidding me, because I've listened to Jim Rome and I've known about his show, but I never saw you. I never saw your face until then, and I think I like hit Butnick. I'm like, hey, bro. I was like, he was on the Real World, wasn't he?
Butnick's like, oh yeah, because Butnick knows all about that stuff. I get it, man, because you got to be thinking, okay, why would Jim Rome roll with a dude who was on the Real World? Like, to your point, like, okay, so this dude from the Real World is his producer. Who's his talent booker? Johnny Bananas? What's going on? You know what I mean? But I remember that. We met in the same building that I work in right now, that I'm in right now, the CBS Broadcast Center. Right down the hall we met. So yes, I could totally understand that why you were thinking that. That's my life, man. People coming up to me and saying, dude, like, how do I know you? What is it? And I sometimes they ask, sometimes they just kind of side-eye me like that. So that's so funny, because I was like, holy shit, there's AJ Hawk. I named my dog after him. And you're saying, holy shit, is that the Real World guy? I'm so glad we could come together.
And it's great because my brother Ryan has a great podcast called The Learning Leader Show, and it's great, and he talks to business people and whatever. And he was we used to watch The Real World together when we were in high school, and then those marathons, and we liked the challenges. And so I think I even sent him a text after I saw you and met you that day.
We should have selfied or something, man.
We should have. How funny is that? So you worked for, you said Jim Rome. How many years were you working for him?
8 years working for Jim Rome. And let me tell you, when you walk in to meet him for the first time, you've seen him on TV and you've heard him on the radio, and he's got that voice and that goatee, and I mean, it lives up to its expectations. And I was walking in And I'm like, dude, I said to him, like, look, man, I don't know if you're going to like my background. I know you're pretty serious about the sports business, but I've been doing some weird things with my life. I don't know if you're into that. He's like, no, bro. No, I like it. Man, it's strong. It's real solid. Yeah, I mean, I like you're different. You come at it from a different place, have good viewpoint, have a perspective, can really grind. I mean, he just goes into his thing. And then 8 years later, I worked with him until 2 weeks ago. I had my last day in the jungle. And so I've been through the battles with Jim Rome. He's like my Obi-Wan in the media. And it all started with that first conversation.
Was there ever any like animosity or anything of you, or did you make it clear from day one, like, hey, I'm just not a behind the scenes producer guy. I want to be on camera, on mic as well?
That's a good question. I think I was really looking forward to being a producer, just because at that point, I told this, I had my last day in the Jim Rome show last week, and the first time right before I met Jim, I was really looking for something different. Like I said, the acting thing wasn't working out. And my last audition, my last real Hollywood audition I ever had, 8 years ago, NBC tried to reboot Knight Rider. I don't even know if you remember it, but obviously we remember the OG Knight Rider. They tried to reboot it, and like the car was a Camaro, and the show lasted about 5 seconds. So I auditioned to be the Hasselhoff role. And I'm like, this is it. This is going to be my thing. This is when I'm finally going to take off. And there's probably 5 rounds of auditions, and I got to like round 2. And I'm like, if I can't even hang in the Hasselhoff role of the Knight Rider reboot, maybe this isn't for me. So like a week later, I met with Rome, and then that was it. So, I mean, I think he knew that I wanted to do stuff. It just took me, man, years and years to get there.
So as an executive producer, like, what all did that job entail for him?
It's kind of crazy, man. I think most of the time people don't really understand what producer means. Like if you're just at home watching TV and you don't work in the industry, you see all the credits: a producer, co-producer, coordinating producer. I used to wonder, what does that even mean? What do you do? I think the easiest possible explanation for producer is you provide the on-air product for the host, in the sense that I'd go on with Jim and I'd say, you know, what do you think we should talk about today? What should you go on? And, you know, I'd have ideas about, you know, what maybe this team is doing this, and maybe this player needs to become correct, and maybe you go in on him. And then Jim would take it and, you know, take that idea and put it in his own words. And it's sort of like a little bit like you're like an offensive coordinator. Like I'll always go to the cheap sports metaphor, the lowest common denominator, but like you're developing a game plan and drawing up plays, sort of, and then it's like up to the quarterback to go produce them.
So what would you do while he was on air, say for his radio show?
You know, I'd be a million things, like either setting up the guest in the next segment, or looking for like guest or listener contributions. Like, okay, so you know, Jim's show is like so wacky and irreverent, and so you know, let's say Jim just made some point about how some team got annihilated last night, and here's Mike in St. Pete who wants to turn that into an O.J. Simpson joke. Let me get this to Jim because I know the listeners are ghouls and they love that. Submitting listener contents, and then, I don't know, just kind of running the show, man. I mean, I wish there could be a behind the scenes someday of the Jim Rome show, because it's fascinating the way that works, man. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's a finely tuned product, and then there's a really good host who's been doing it since like you and I were like in 3rd grade or something like that. So I did a lot of stuff, a lot.
What's like one of the biggest takeaways you have from working for a guy like him?
That, man, he works so hard.
He's famous for his prep, and his preparation is crazy. I've emailed with him over the last couple of years just asking about how to like conduct interviews, and he's been so awesome and helpful to me. Even though if he ever saw these, he'd be probably upset that I usually don't follow the stuff that he's told me. But I'm working on it, Jim. You've obviously
prepped. I can tell you when you produce, you can tell when someone has thought about things. Look, Jim is to the point where, I mean, Rome's done this like almost 30 years. He could probably just go on TV and wing it to talk about the Cowboys, and it'll be good. He never does that, man. It's like, it's so impressive that this many years into it, when it'd probably be easy to just mail it in, kind of a made guy in the media, you've made money, you've been around, like, perfect example. He used to do this. He still does this, like local hit, like appearance in radio every week on Kevin and Bean, the massive show on K-Rock in LA. He just talks sports stuff, whatever. It's like a 6-minute segment. Jim could just go in there with zero notice and just ad-lib some stuff from nowhere, but he really thinks about what he wants to talk about, what his angle is, and he's prepared when he goes on the air. And it's just, it's so admirable, because who wants to do all that work, man? Who wants to, like, it reminds me of like I remember like when Favre retired, he said the same thing that every player says. Man, I love the games, but it's that training camp, man. I want to put all that work into it. They all say that. Jim is still doing training camp. He's still hitting the weights when he doesn't need to anymore. So that's what I've learned. Don't just mail it in, because if you're not doing those weights, somebody else is, man, and they're going to take your job.
Is that something that you, going into this new show that you have, Good Morning Football on NFL Network, is that something that you are always aware of, and how much you have to prep to be actually on TV and be live, man? That's a big deal.
I think especially, dude, yes, the live thing, because you can't say something stupid or you get in trouble. And then also just like everybody has an opinion on the NFL. Like my cab driver has an opinion on the NFL. My wife has an opinion on the NFL. So if you're going to go on TV and have one, like, it better be good, man. And the other thing is, like, it better be backed up. Like, you can't say that, oh, so-and-so is a crappy quarterback, because they'll be like, you know, did you do any research? Because I don't know if you've seen the last 3 years, it's actually been really good. You know, that kind of stuff happens. Like, you get called out on that hard, because you have, like, the entire social media who, and not only do they have opinions about everything, that their favorite thing is the NFL. So to answer your question, no, I can't just like let it rip tomorrow morning on the Dolphins. Like, I have to actually know what I'm talking about, especially because I didn't play in the league, man. Especially me, because I'm just like any other guy sitting at home. What does this guy know? What does this pretty boy MTV douchebag know that I don't know? You better be good, and I'm not good enough to do it off the top of my head.
Man, I'm excited to see how the show grows and continues. It's already in a short time. It's fun to watch. You are like the, I don't know what you would be cast. How could I describe you? Like the fun, high energy, smart Princeton grad running back that brings a lot of energy and like fun little segments. Like, do you come up with those segments, or do you have writers for you? How's it work?
Both. There's like a huge team here. It's funny. We just did a thing where we were running down, like, we're trying to figure out. There's 4 of us who do the show. We're trying to figure out the Hollywood pitch. You know, like, if they're trying to pitch an actress, they'll be like, you know, she's Angelina Jolie meets Roseanne Barr, whatever the hell it is. So we were coming up with them, and then everyone was like, oh, Kyle, you're Jimmy Kimmel meets Jason Priestley. And I'm like, oh, all right, I think that's good. I mean, I like Kimmel. I haven't seen Priestley in a while, but I love Brandon Walsh. So that's my best description. I should put that as my Twitter bio, Jimmy Kimmel meets Jason Priestley.
I love it, man. Where do you have any? I know it's just so early into the show, but do you have any like dream gig if this isn't it, or what? I'm sure it probably is part of it. But do you have anything like you're still striving for? You think like, man, I would just love to try this. Maybe a movie, maybe some other sports center. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I won't even lie. When Strahan walked away from Kelly Ripa, I was like, oh, I want that. I'm like, let me just pitch it to him as Kelly and Kyle. That's all anybody wants is a name for a show in this industry is alliteration. If you have the same name letter, like, you're halfway there. They love that. So I figured that was half the battle. I don't think that's going to happen because I got this gig, but I would love to do that. Like, just a daily talk show, New York. I mean, obviously Matt Lauer has like the greatest gig. Another guy who works his ass off. But, you know, I've always had that thing in sports. Like, I'd love to get outside of sports. I don't know. We talked about, AJ, how you're like a Renaissance man, and you understand. When I was in high school, like, my parents were always hitting me with like, you're more than just sports. Don't just do sports. Don't just be the jock. You can do more. You can do more. And of course, I was the jock. But then, you know, I started doing theater and all that stuff. So I think to answer your question, my goal, like the home run for me would be doing something outside of sports and like proving that I can do that. I mean, don't you feel the same way? You're doing media now. You have all these interests. You're a father. You're into music and all these things. Don't you feel the same way, especially people know you so well as being that like long-haired linebacker? Like, you could do so many things differently. I bet you feel convicted about that. Oh,
I'm with you 100%. That's the thing. I have so many different things that interest me. That's why, I mean, if you look at the guest list of my podcast, that's why it's so weird and diverse, because I'm like, oh, this will be cool. Let me send this dude. Let me find his email and track him down and try to get him on the show, because I want to talk to people that aren't just athletes and do what I have done. But, yeah, I know what football got me into the game. I know that's what – and I still want to stay involved with, like, I'd like to call games. I say it all the time. I'd like to be in the booth calling games, but that's not, like, where I want it to end. That's just one facet of where I would like to go with the whole broadcasting media world. It would be cool to someday branch off into other sports, or I like giving like speaking gigs, man. I have those every once in a while. And I like to.
Do you do that motivational stuff?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like when you say motivational, you're a huge douche. So no, I don't say motivational. But I'd like to give an entertaining. I like to come up with an entertaining hour that I can give. I don't have a full hour yet, but I'm always working on it. And I love doing that, man. My dad's been public speaking for 30 years professionally, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my brother does a good amount of it. One of them, and yeah, man, it's fun. I enjoy like that. I feel like you get that kind of like nervous anxiety, adrenaline before you go on and give a talk by yourself. So
it is.
I would like to do that.
Let me put you on the spot. Tomorrow on the show, we're having a guy that you were on the same field with many, many, many times. Brandt Urlacher is coming on the show tomorrow. I mean, I'm sure that's your guy. You guys have similar sensibilities. Obviously, the position. You have Urlacher stories. I mean, you guys played so many times.
I wish I had more. See, I regret, and I don't regret many things, but I just said this the other day. I regret that I didn't get to know Urlacher better when I was playing against him every year, because I've gotten to know him over the last 3 or 4 years of playing golf out in Lake Tahoe at the American Century Championship, which is the greatest event. And I actually just flew home on the plane with him like a week ago from Tahoe.
Oh, cool.
And so we were talking to him and his wife in the airport before we got on the plane, man. And he is such a good dude. I don't know if you've had a lot of interaction with him.
A little bit.
God, he's so cool. And that's the thing. Like, I was Packers, he's Bears guy. And from day one, when I first met him, he was just so awesome. Such a good, normal guy and just funny. And I don't know if I have any good stories about him. We both had a similar wrist injury surgery situation we were talking about on our right wrist. Yeah, he did his against the Packers, actually, where he completely dislocation of his wrist.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember Aaron Rodgers, I remember once said when Urlacher retired, he was on, I think he was talking to Rome, and he said, I'm really going to miss the conversations I had with him on the field. And I was talking to him afterwards. I said, so you and Urlacher would like talk junk to each other? He's like, no. Like, it wasn't like that. We would actually have conversations between plays about like this ref or this play or things having nothing to do with the game. That really goes on? Yeah,
and especially when quarterbacks are like really respected as well, when they're that good, players no matter who the player is on defense, they like to talk to him a little bit. And Aaron could 100% loves to talk about all kind of crazy stuff other than football. And Urlacher is so funny and just cool that for 100% I guarantee you they were talking about how terrible one of the refs is, or how terrible, how bad his pants fit. The ref looks terrible, and whatever. Yeah, man.
Dude, but what is Aaron? What is Aaron's life like right now with the Bachelor stuff, man? I mean, he's so private, and it's so odd that his brother is on the cover of every magazine at the checkout line, and maybe the best player in the NFL has to be asked about it. It makes me cringe just thinking about it.
It does. It's really weird. I don't know exactly. I don't pry into it. We were with him out in Tahoe. And I think when anybody puts any kind of like business out there so publicly, it can't be easy to deal with, especially when you're a private dude. And like you said, you're probably the best player in the NFL right now. Yeah. And ABC they knew what they were doing, man. Like
the empty chair.
Oh, God. Yeah. Chair. And how many times are you going to reference and say Aaron's name too?
Yeah, they milked the hell out of that, man. And then his brothers are talking about him. It's like if you were still on the Packers, like let's say you like The Bachelorette, you like to watch with your lady or whatever. Who doesn't? I do. Then you go and you see your Aaron the next day, and it's like, dude, I watched your brother last night. That's odd. How does he handle that?
I don't know as much. See, like I know Jordan too. Like I've known Jordan. Played golf with him back in the day and everything. And I don't think it comes up a whole lot, at least within the team. I think now though he's getting asked about it because Jordan won, and it seems like I'm sure they're going to make the talk show circuit. They're going to be everywhere, going around as a couple, and so yeah, I think he's commented a few times saying
he kind of came out and it was weird. He said his rap about I don't like talking about private things, which is fine, and then he said, like, I want to wish him good luck in the competition. Yeah,
I saw that.
Well, that just proves that he doesn't watch the show because, as we know, AJ, it's not a competition. It's a journey to find love. Right? So anyway, to your point, he's going to – I wonder – the last thing I want to ask about this is you know that Packers media really well. So does Aaron, as powerful and influential as he is to that media, does he have that power to be like, guys, it's out. Like, I'm putting the kibosh on that. Don't ask me about it after practice. I mean, he wouldn't say that, but – will they fall in line, or are there still going to be people asking him after practice? Never mind 7-on-7. Let's talk about the fantasy suite. I mean, are people going to do that?
I think the beat writers, I think they're cool to steer clear of it. They're always, I think they're pretty respectful of stuff like that. But now, especially with training camp, you have national people coming in every single day. So if anyone is going to ask about it, it will be those national guys probably, or someone that comes in from the Minnesota Star Tribune or someone that isn't there daily. Mm-hmm. But as far as the beat writers go, I think he's built up enough the goodwill with those guys. I don't think they'll ask too much about it because you're not going to get anything from him. And in to defend Aaron for sure, like it truly is none of anyone's business if he wants to talk about it or not. So he can say like, "Hey man, hadn't he even said like leave me out of the narrative or something about it?" Yeah,
I mean, look, it's such a pain in the ass for him. He's starting the season. People want to say he didn't play that well last year by his standards, whatever. But like now it's like, all right, so first he gets asked about it. Now he gets asked because your brother won. And then inevitably, who knows, spoiler alert, he's going to be asked about it when they break up. Like, can't get away from it. And he's trying to – this is a critical season for him. So, God, it's jacked up, man.
Yeah, sometimes, though, distractions like that or distractions of any help guys out on the field. They feel hey, this is like my – think about it. It's like this is my sanctuary. This is where I thrive. He knows when he steps outside those lines, you have to deal with the real world and all these douchebags wanting to ask you about – your brother on the cover of In Touch magazine. So he can get on, and Aaron's he's so mentally strong and competitive. I guarantee you can get on the field. Who knows? Maybe it takes him to a whole nother level.
Unless somebody he's playing against, weaponizes that or gets in his ear about rose ceremonies. Would that kind of thing go down? I mean, let's say he plays somebody like the Bengals or the Vikings. Would they do that?
I'm sure guys would say something to him, but he's not in middle school. I think he could brush that one off on the field. It'd be easier. Think about it. It'd be way easier to deal with that on the field than it would some little guy with some little tape recorder into his mouth. Like, so what do you think about their trip to Tahiti? How was it?
Yeah, it's true. But, man, okay. I love that guy so much as a player, and my interactions with him as a person are awesome. But I don't envy him because he's got this whole MO that he has now this deep into his career. He's professional, and he's got his private life, and then God, his brother's just out there, like you said, in Touch magazine, and he will be for weeks still.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up here in a second, but that made me think of one. So let's just say you guys have Aaron booked to come on the show, in a week or so, and the suits up top in your 5 a.m. meeting say, "Hey guys, Kyle, this is on you, man. You're like our pop culture guy. We need you to ask him, at least somehow get him talking about The Bachelor because we know it'll be good ratings. We can get viral clips. It'll go boom, boom. It'll get our show on the map." What do you do?
Well, this came up with the Bill Simmons appearance. So Aaron goes on Bill Simmons, and this is a couple weeks ago when this thing was really hot. And, Jordan was getting to the Final Four, which is, like the NFC Championship game of The Bachelor. And Bill Simmons doesn't ask him about it that we know of. Honestly, it was weird, and I don't think it was right because Bill Simmons, of all things, is like the god of pop culture and sports. If anybody is going to ask him about it, and so then there's the discussion. All right, maybe who knows? I don't know. Did Aaron's people or Aaron say I'd prefer not to talk about it? You can't do that, and not on the Bill Simmons show. You can't say okay, fine, we won't. It is a glaring elephant in the room. It's better to ask him a question about it and have him say I prefer to keep the private life private. Than not ask him at all. I thought it was a huge omission. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, look, if he comes on in a couple weeks, it's over. If he comes on tomorrow morning, I think I would ask him something benign because, I don't want to clown the guy. This is a great dude and a great player. I'm not looking to, be some, paparazzi buzzing on his shoulder. I think I would say something open about, we've all watched this. It's been a massive thing in culture. What was it like to go through that experience for you vicariously and see where he goes with it? You have to ask him.
Yeah, I watched the Bill Simmons as well. I definitely don't think, I didn't ask Aaron, but I don't think he would go on with stipulations of what you can't ask him about. I don't think that would happen.
Doesn't sound like him. I don't know, but like you do, but it was odd that he was not asked about it.
I thought it was odd that, the Bill, if anyone's going to do it, Bill Simmons would want to, but have you watched Bill's new show?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the show. I watched the Affleck one. I watched it since. And I just saw the clip of Aaron's interview on that show. But yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe it's going to take me some time to get into it. It just seems like some things aren't meant to be a TV show. And I'm not saying that's not, but like his opening monologue thing he does, I don't know, man. I'm going to have to get used to it because I love Bill Simmons and I love his podcast. I just like him. But sometimes I feel like when corpos step in, man, it makes it kind of weird.
I'm going through that right now, man. It's hard. Like you think you're just going to come in the morning and just we'll riff on this and riff on that and make fun of this. And then they're just like, nah, we're not going to do that. And they have all the right intentions because we have a new show and we want to do it strongly. And the first 2 shows have been good, but TV's hard, dude. It's really, really hard.
It is. The good thing is, man, you got your looks. You're aging well. You're only, 37?
37, and dude, I don't know if you have this, but the grays are coming. They're coming here. They're coming in the power alleys.
Are you going to dye your hair?
I can't, right?
Don't do it. Don't.
Because you can never – first of all, my wife tells me that she likes, like, the little salt and pepper, even though I hate it. Like, dyeing your hair, like, it's just very – you look like a tool immediately, right? Because there's no good dye. You can always tell. I don't care how much money you spend on it. Still looks like some Just for Men that you, like, brushed through at the CVS. So the answer to the question is no, I will not be dyeing my hair.
And think about how once you start that train – think how many hours and days of your life you waste going to the place every 2 weeks or whatever it may be. I say that to my wife all the time because she's like, yo, if your hair turned gray, you would definitely dye it. I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to go on every 2 weeks and wasting my whole life so someone can't see if your hair is gray. Like, who cares, man? I'll be all right. Don't worry about it.
AJ, your hair's not long anymore, right? I'm trying to see it.
It's like it's like a long weird thing like my little son Hendrix has.
Yeah. Oh, wait, Hendrix has the same haircut?
Yeah, he has more of like a mohawky type thing. I'm trying to grow mine out. So like, if you see this, I'm trapped in this cut. I cut it up too high. If you see this is usually kind of shaved. I'm trying to get this wider. I want this. Think about it. For the audio listeners, this is dynamite content for them.
No, it's really good content.
So
it looks awesome.
I don't care. So this is the thing. I'm talking to you because it's such a handsome dude, man. You know my answer. So look. I'm trapped I shaved it up too high. I want this top part to be wider to start down here. So I'm going to have to grow all this weird side hair out until it's long enough to put into the top.
Dude, that's like months.
I'm a prisoner. I'm a prisoner of this haircut right now.
I mean, it still looks kind of cool, dude. I actually like it.
Kind of cool. You're
not dying it.
You just said kind of cool. That means now I'm going to have to shave my head.
It doesn't look amazing. It looks kind of cool.
Well, I'm not going to dye it. I'm not starting that thing, man. Luckily, I don't need to right now, but whatever. All right, man. Kyle, you're a gracious man. You came on. You were on the air for 3 hours just a couple short 90 minutes ago probably. Yeah. Jumped on here. You're great, man. Great high energy dude. I love it. So really, really appreciate you coming on, man. You're a fun dude. I'm going to have you back on here for sure I want to hear after the first couple months of the show and see how you really feel after you've really been grinding hard.
Good. And I want to have you on Good Morning Football. And I want you to give the best to Lennon and Hendrix, and especially my favorite, Little Vetter, who probably talks at 7 months like Eddie sounds on that song, just as slurred and incoherent.
Like that, and I listen to, I have him play, I play Release all the time for him in his room.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Gosh, that one. You talk about getting deep. Yeah.
Well, I love Release, and I love Indifference, like at the end of the verses. I mean, that's a top 5 Pearl Jam song for me. It's so good, and like we all love, Animal and Go and all that type of stuff. But then when they do the Release and Garden and Indifference, dude, it brings the feels hard.
What about, you talk about going deep, what about the Into the Wild soundtrack? Do you listen to it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. That was when they got into that like chanting and like, because I know you celebrate Eddie's entire catalog. You even do those weird ukulele things that he does, right? He loves the ukulele.
A little bit.
He loves it. But I haven't seen them in a long time. I'm going to try to see them the next couple of months. I know they're still touring, but I will think of the youngest Hawk child the next time I see them too, because I love that kid.
Thank you. I'll bring him on here sometime for you. Awesome. I'll send you a pic. All right, man. Kyle Brandt, thank you very much. Tell people where to find you on Twitter or your website, whatever.
At Kyle Brandt, really easy. At Kyle Brandt on Twitter, and then I just started a new Instagram because they asked me to. My Instagram page was like all baby pictures and stuff, so I didn't want to release all my kids to the NFL hordes. So at Kyle Brandt's NFL is my Instagram, and I'll try to produce as many things as I can for you. And AJ, your podcast is awesome. Your career was awesome. I named my dog after you, dude.
Appreciate it, man. All right, Kyle. Thanks a lot.
Peace, AJ. See you later.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.